Somewhere in America right now, someone is standing at a gun counter about to sell a pistol that their state will classify as contraband before their next birthday. Not because it is dangerous, not because it has ever been used in a crime, but because it has the wrong features, the wrong magazine capacity, or the wrong configuration at exactly the wrong moment in American legislative history. And by the time they realize what they gave up, they will never be able to replace it. This video is your warning. Number 10, the Ruger Mark IV target. Most people look at a Ruger Mark IV and see a rimfire pistol, a plinker, a squirrel gun dressed up in Target clothing. And for 30 years, that perception has kept serious collectors from paying attention. That is about to change. The Ruger Mark series has been in continuous production since 1949, making it one of the longest-running pistol lines in American manufacturing history. The Mark IV, introduced in 2017, refined everything that made the earlier Mark series great and added a one-button takedown system that made the notoriously complex disassembly of the original design almost effortless. But here's the detail that matters for 2027. The Mark IV target comes from the factory with a threaded barrel option, a 1/2-inch by 28 thread pattern machined directly into the muzzle. And threaded barrels are sitting at the center of proposed federal legislation that would classify them as suppressor-ready components subject to the same restrictions as National Firearms Act items. Think about what that means. A factory-threaded Mark IV target purchased legally today at a licensed dealer for $500 could become a restricted configuration that requires a tax stamp, a background check, and a $200 federal fee to transfer. The pistol does not change. The law does. And the people holding factory-threaded examples before the restriction locks in will be holding something that can never be manufactured for civilian sale in that configuration again. The rimfire collector market already understands this trajectory. High-condition Mark I and Mark II pistols from the earliest production runs are climbing steadily. A minty Mark I from the 1960s brings $400 to $800 today from buyers who understand what original production means. The Mark IV target with threaded barrel in original factory configuration is at the beginning of that same curve. Do not refinish the barrel. Do not remove the thread protector. Do not swap the grips. The factory configuration is the entire point. If you own one, lock it away. If you are hunting for one, buy it this month. Number 9, the Beretta 92 FS. The United States military carried this pistol as its standard sidearm for 30 years, from 1985 when the M9 replaced the Colt 1911 in American service until 2017 when the Sig Sauer P320 took its place. The Beretta 92 FS was the handgun of the American soldier. That history alone makes it significant, but history is not why this pistol is on this list. The Beretta 92 FS ships from the factory with a 15-round double-stack magazine. That capacity is specifically targeted by magazine restriction legislation, currently active in 8 states and proposed at the federal level in bills that use 10 rounds as the cutoff. 10 rounds, the 92 FS holds 15. Every round above 10 is a legislative target. Here is what most people do not understand about magazine restriction laws and collector value. When California passed its magazine restriction, pre-ban standard capacity magazines became grandfathered. Owners who held them kept them legally, but new acquisition became impossible. And the market for grandfathered standard capacity Beretta magazines in California moved immediately. Prices doubled, then tripled, because the supply froze while the demand from 2 decades of new Beretta owners never stopped growing. If federal magazine restriction legislation passes, the same thing happens nationwide, overnight, and the Beretta 92 FS in original full capacity configuration with factory 15-round magazines becomes exactly what the pre-ban AR-15 became in 1994. A frozen moment in American firearms manufacturing that you either hold or spend the rest of your life trying to replace. The 92 FS in excellent original condition with factory magazines runs around $600 to $800 today. That price has nowhere to go but up the moment legislation moves. Military surplus examples with documented service history carry an additional premium that will only grow. If you own a 92 FS, keep the original magazines, keep every piece of documentation, and do not let anyone talk you into selling it cheap. Number 8, the CZ75B. If you ask any serious pistol shooter what the finest all-steel production handgun in the world is, and you give them 30 seconds to think about it, the answer you hear most often is not a Glock. It is not a SIG. It is the CZ75. Designed in Czechoslovakia in 1975 by František Kauky, the CZ75 solved problems that every other pistol designer of its era was still arguing about. The slide rides inside the frame rails rather than outside, creating a lower bore axis and a natural pointability that shooters feel the first time they pick one up and never forget. The double action and single action trigger system is executed with a smoothness that costs twice the price in competing designs. The all-steel construction gives it a weight in the hand that polymer pistols have been trying to simulate ever since, and that all-steel construction is exactly what makes it a legislative target. Multiple pieces of proposed legislation specifically address pistol weight and construction as a factor in determining whether a handgun qualifies as a sporting pistol under federal definitions that determine import eligibility. The CZ75B is manufactured in the Czech Republic. It enters the United States as an import, and import restrictions tied to sporting purpose definitions could remove it from the American civilian market without any direct domestic legislation at all. The ATF has used sporting purpose import criteria to restrict handgun imports before. They will use it again, and when they do, the supply of new CZ75B pistols entering the United States stops permanently. What exists in the American market is all there will ever be. Pre-restriction CZ75B pistols in original configuration are currently running $700 to $900. Shadow 2 variants and custom shop examples are already approaching $1,500. The trajectory on these pistols in a post-restriction environment mirrors exactly what happened to pre-banned Soviet surplus pistols after the Cold War import restrictions of the 1990s. The people holding original CZ75B examples before the window closes are going to look very smart in about 5 years. Number 7, the Walther P22. This is the pistol on this list that will surprise the most people. And the reason it will surprise them is the same reason it is in danger. The Walther P22 is a rimfire pistol, .22 long rifle, a training gun, a recreational shooter. It is not a defense pistol. It is not a duty weapon. Nobody has ever listed it alongside the serious combat handguns on any fighting loadout. And yet, it is one of the most legislatively vulnerable pistols in America right now. Here is why. The P22 was designed to look like a centerfire pistol. Specifically, it mimics the visual profile of larger caliber semi-automatic handguns. It has the same grip angle, the same silhouette, the same magazine release position, and the same external controls as its centerfire cousins. It was designed that way intentionally as a training analog for shooters who wanted to practice with a cheaper rimfire cartridge before transitioning to centerfire carry guns. That design philosophy is now a legislative liability. Proposed feature-based restrictions that focus on pistol appearance rather than caliber or function would capture the P22 in the same net as centerfire pistols with far more power. Legislators writing these bills are not gunsmiths. They are looking at photographs, and the P22 in a photograph looks exactly like the pistols they are trying to restrict. Early production Walther P22 pistols with original German manufacturer markings are already separating from later production in the collector market. Clean examples with original boxes are bringing $350 to $500. Threaded barrel variants follow the same legislative risk profile as the Ruger Mark IV. Own one, lock it away, do not modify it, and understand that in a feature-based restriction environment, the rimfire pistol that looks like a centerfire is in more danger than the centerfire itself. Number 6, the Springfield Armory XDS. The single-stack 9mm pistol is the most legislated handgun configuration in American history. and nobody talks about it. Here is the story most gun owners have never heard. When politicians and advocacy groups began pushing for handgun restrictions in the 1990s, single-stack pistols were largely exempted from the conversation because their lower magazine capacity was seen as less threatening. The Glock 17 with 17 rounds was the target. The single stack with 7 was left alone. That calculus has now reversed entirely. The Springfield Armory XDS in 9mm offers a slim, concealable package with a 7-round flush magazine and extended options that push capacity higher. It is one of the most popular concealed carry pistols in America, and popularity is exactly what draws legislative attention. Proposed micro-stamping legislation in multiple states would require new semi-automatic pistol designs to imprint identifying information on cartridge cases with each shot fired. The technology adds manufacturing cost, creates reliability concerns that the industry has documented extensively, and most critically, applies to new production only. Pistols manufactured before the micro-stamping requirement takes effect are grandfathered. California has had micro-stamping requirements for semi-automatic pistols since 2013. The result? The roster of handguns approved for civilian sale in California has shrunk by over 70% since the law passed. Manufacturers cannot cost-effectively comply, so they stopped selling in California. And the pistols that were already on the roster before the law passed became frozen in time. If micro-stamping requirements pass federally or in additional large states, the Springfield XDS in its current configuration becomes exactly what California's pre-2013 roster pistols became. The last legally available version of a configuration you can no longer buy new. Current market on the XDS runs $450 to $600. In a post-micro-stamping environment, pre-requirement examples will command a premium that mirrors every other legislatively frozen firearm on this list. The pattern does not change, only the pistol does. Number 5, the Sig Sauer P320. In 2017, the United States Army selected the Sig Sauer P320 as the M17, replacing the Beretta M9 after 30 years of service. It was the most significant American military pistol adoption in a generation. And the feature that won the Army contract is the exact feature that has legislators reaching for their pens. The P320 uses a modular serialized chassis system. The serial number, the legally regulated component that makes a pistol under federal law, lives not in the frame, not in the slide, but in a removable internal chassis unit. That chassis can be moved between different grip modules, different slide lengths, and different calibers. One chassis, multiple configurations, the same legal firearm. It is one of the most elegant engineering solutions in modern pistol design. And it is also the feature that proposed federal legislation specifically targets when it talks about regulating serialized components rather than complete firearms. If legislation passes that changes how the serialized chassis is classified, transferred, or configured, the P320 as currently sold becomes a different legal animal overnight. The pistol that the United States military chose, the pistol carried by Army and Air Force personnel right now, could require additional federal paperwork to transfer in its complete multi-configuration form. The P320 Legion variants in original configuration are running $900 to $1,200. Gray Guns custom builds and factory Legion editions with original documentation are already climbing. The military adoption story gives this pistol a historical significance that goes beyond the legislative risk alone. A pistol that won an Army contract and then got caught in a federal regulatory change is not just a collector piece. It is a chapter in American military history, and chapters like that only appreciate. Number 4, the Glock 17 Gen 3 with factory 33-round magazine. The Glock 17 needs no introduction. Over 65% of American law enforcement carries a Glock. Tier 1 military units across the Western world have carried them in combat. The reliability data is not a marketing claim. It is documented over decades and hundreds of millions of rounds. But this is not a story about the Glock 17 alone. This is a story about the complete system. The Glock 17 Gen 3 paired with its factory 33-round extended magazine is a configuration that exists at the precise intersection of every active magazine restriction proposal in America right now. The magazine is factory produced. It is legal in the majority of American states today, and it is specifically named by capacity in federal legislation that has cleared committee in the last 3 congressional sessions. Here is the parallel that every serious collector needs to understand. Before the 1994 assault weapons ban, standard capacity AR magazines were $3 a piece. After the ban, pre-ban AR magazines with the right date stamps were $50. 1,000% increase. Not because the magazine changed, because the law made manufacturing new ones illegal. If federal magazine capacity restrictions pass with a threshold below 33 rounds, Glock factory 33-round magazines become exactly what pre-ban AR magazines became. The last legally manufactured examples of a configuration that cannot be produced for civilian sale again. A Glock 17 Gen 3 in original configuration with factory 33-round magazines is running $650 to $850 today. The magazines themselves in a post-restriction environment will be worth more than most people paid for them. Keep the original packaging, keep the factory documentation, and understand that the pistol and the magazine together are the collectible. Separate them, and you have cut the value of the system in half. Number 3. The Smith & Wesson M&P Shield EZ. This is the pistol on this list that makes me the most frustrated when I see it sold cheap at gun shows, because what is happening to it legislatively is genuinely backwards, and the people selling it have no idea. The Smith & Wesson M&P Shield EZ was designed specifically for shooters who struggle with the physical demands of operating a standard semi-automatic pistol. Older shooters, shooters with arthritis, shooters with limited hand strength. The EZ in the name stands for easy. The slide is dramatically easier to rack than any comparable pistol. The grip safety is forgiving. The trigger is smooth. It is by every measure of design intent the most user-friendly defensive pistol Smith & Wesson has ever produced. And that user-friendliness is exactly what certain legislators are now using as an argument for restriction. The logic, and I use that word very loosely, runs like this. A pistol that is easy to operate is a pistol that requires less training to use. A pistol that requires less training to use is more accessible to people who have not been properly trained, and more accessibility means more danger. It is a circular argument that ignores decades of defensive firearm use data, but it is an argument that has appeared in formal legislative testimony in 4 states in the last 2 years. The Smith & Wesson M&P line has been in production since 2005. Early production examples are already beginning to separate from later production in the collector market, following the exact same pattern as the Remington 870 Wingmaster. The EZ configuration, precisely because it is purpose-built for a specific and underserved shooting population, represents a design moment that the industry may not be allowed to repeat if ease of use becomes a liability under law. Current market on the Shield EZ runs $450 to $600. The people buying them today and holding original examples are going to be very right about this in 5 years. The people selling them cheap at gun shows are going to be telling the same story. Collectors always tell, I had one and I let it go. Number 2, the Polymer 80 Complete Build Pre-ATF Rule. Let me be precise about what we are discussing here because precision matters enormously on this topic. In August of 2022, the ATF finalized a rule that redefined what constitutes a firearm frame or receiver under federal law. The rule specifically targeted unfinished polymer frames sold as parts kits, the products that Polymer 80 had built its business around. Under the new rule, products that were previously sold legally as unfinished components were reclassified as regulated firearms, requiring serialization, background checks, and dealer transfers. Polymer 80 challenged the rule in federal court. The legal battle went to the Supreme Court of the United States. In June of 2024, the Supreme Court struck down the ATF rule in a 6-3 decision. But here is what that decision did not do. It did not erase the period between 2022 and 2024 when the rule was in effect. And it did not prevent Congress from passing statutory legislation that accomplishes the same goal through a different legal mechanism. Multiple federal bills targeting unserialized firearms are active right now. a legitimately completed polymer 80 build, finished and serialized before the regulatory landscape shifted, exists in a unique legal position. It is a documented piece of the most significant regulatory firearms fight in the last 2 decades. It represents the exact moment when the ATF overreached, got slapped back by the Supreme Court, and Congress decided to try again through the front door. The historical significance of pre-rule complete builds is only beginning to be understood by collectors. These are not just pistols, they are legal artifacts, physical evidence of a constitutional battle that is still being fought. The collector market for documented, provenance-clear pre-rule builds is in its earliest stages, and the ceiling is genuinely unknown. Do not sell these, do not lose the documentation, and understand that what you are holding is not just a pistol. It is a piece of American legal history. Number 1, the 6-hour P226 Legion with factory threaded barrel and suppressor height sights. I want you to understand why this specific configuration sits at number 1 on this list, not the P226 by itself, the Legion variant, with the factory threaded barrel, with the factory suppressor height sights, as a complete original from the box system. Because this pistol, in this configuration, checks every single box on every single active federal restriction proposal simultaneously. And I mean every single one. Factory threaded barrel, targeted by proposed suppressor component legislation, suppressor height sights designed to allow sight picture over a mounted suppressor, proposed legislation classifying suppressor-ready configurations as NFA-adjacent items would capture these sights specifically. Full-size double-stack magazine exceeding 10 rounds, targeted by magazine capacity restriction proposals, imported components in the Legion build chain. Vulnerable to sporting purpose, import restriction criteria, modular rail system on the frame, targeted by accessory attachment restriction proposals in multiple state bills. The P226 has been in production since 1983. It served the United States Navy SEALs as the Mark 25 for decades. It is carried by the Secret Service. It has been on more real-world duty rosters than almost any other pistol in the Western world. The Legion variant, introduced in 2015, represents SIG's finest production expression of the P226 platform. Improved trigger components, Legion gray finish, G10 grips, and the factory threaded barrel option that transforms it from a duty pistol into a complete precision system. If any one of the legislative proposals currently active becomes law, some part of this configuration becomes restricted. If more than one passes, this pistol in its current factory form cannot be legally manufactured for civilian transfer. It becomes what the pre-ban Colt Python became after Colt's manufacturing changes, what the pre-64 Model 70 became after Winchester's cost-cutting, what the 1 of 1,000 Winchester became the moment the last one shipped, the last legally available version of something that cannot be replaced. Current market on the P226 Legion with factory threaded barrel runs $1,200 to $1,600 for excellent condition examples with original cases and paperwork. In a post-restriction environment, the complete factory configuration with all original components and documentation will be worth double that, minimum. Keep the original case, keep the factory threaded barrel installed, keep every piece of paper that came in that box, and understand that this is not just the most legislatively vulnerable pistol on this list. It is the most historically significant one, because when future collectors study the moment American pistol legislation changed forever, the P226 Legion in complete factory configuration will be the pistol that captured every dimension of what the law took away. And that story, written into blued steel and an aluminum frame and factory threaded steel, is what collector value is made of. So here's what you do right now. Every pistol on this list shares one truth. Their window is measured in months, not years. The legislative calendar is moving faster than most gun owners realize, and the difference between the person who holds and the person who sells is usually nothing more than information. 4 rules, the same rules that apply to every collector firearm on the right side of a legislative change. Rule 1, never refinish. Not the frame, not the slide, not the barrel. Original factory finish on a legislatively significant pistol is the difference between a collector piece and a shooter. The moment you strip the finish and refinish, you have erased the factory provenance that the collector market pays a premium for. Rule 2. Keep every piece of paper, the factory box, the manual, the test fire target that SIG puts in the case, the receipt, the background check date. Every document that places this pistol in legal original configuration before a restriction date is documentation that adds value. The same principle that makes a Cody Firearms Museum letter worth thousands on a Winchester applies here. Rule 3. Keep the original configuration. Do not swap the factory barrel for an aftermarket. Do not replace the factory magazines with third-party units. Do not mount accessories that alter the original profile. The factory configuration is the collectible. Modifications turn a future collector piece into a parts gun. Rule 4. Pass it down. Include these pistols in your estate planning. Tell your family what they have and what it means. The single greatest tragedy in the firearms world is an heir who sells a $1,500 pistol for $300 because nobody told them what it was. Do not let that be your story. The pattern is always the same. 1964, 1994, and now 2027 is forming on the horizon. The people who are right are always the people who understood the pattern early enough to act on it. You now understand the pattern. What you do next is up to you. Hit the like button if this list changed the way you are looking at your safe tonight. Subscribe, because next week, I am breaking down the 5 handgun calibers that federal ammunition restriction proposals are targeting right now and the 1 cartridge you should be stockpiling before the window closes. Stay sharp, stay informed, and whatever you do, do not sell before you know what you have.